Good morning. Welcome to a little bit of new office space for me, and welcome back. It's been a little bit of time since we were together and talking through what has been going on in Wisdom Lit, and so today we're going to dive into some of the material here for Job. Really, just kind of what I want to do today is set some stage for the narrative sequence, talk through, I think, some of the perspective that's here, and then talk through a bit of the big picture sort of narrative arc and the characters that are present in the text of Job, and Job's dialogue with the rest of the wisdom list. So we're in this sort of mode of looking at the wisdom texts as texts that are intentionally in dialogue with one another, as a means to uncover wisdom and explore what wisdom is with the core we pick up from Proverbs, the fear of the Lord and the knowledge of God. And so Job, then, when we open the narrative, we learn a couple of things. Job is the greatest of the people of the East, and he is blameless and upright. And it seems a bit innocuous to us, but I had a professor who highlighted this pretty well in the past. Hat tip here to Dr. Vance and my time with him in Old Testament studies at Oral Roberts. But he used to tell us, and I think it bears itself out pretty well in the scripture, nothing good ever happens in the East. Nothing good ever goes that direction. In fact, things get better when people come west from the East. The wise men acknowledge the truth and leave the East to go and greet the Messiah in the text of the Gospels. Adam and Eve are expelled from the garden to the east. Babylon is in the east. Assyria is in the east. The plagues of flies and gnats and locusts and things like that befall Egypt from the east. They come with a strong west wind, so they come from the east. Job is the greatest of the peoples of the East, and so we get this little thing like right off the bat in the storyline of Job, where Job's awesome, but he's in the East, and so it's not going to last. Something's going to go terribly sideways rapidly, and that's exactly what happens. It takes all of 3 verses before we're introduced to a character, 4 verses maybe, before we're introduced to a character who's going to problematize this whole thing, and that's this accuser, which I'm going to talk about more in a second here. So Job's the greatest of the peoples of the East, and being in the East isn't necessarily a good thing in the paradigm of the scripture and the book of Job. It means, at least as a sort of foreboding sign, right, that Jaws music is playing in the background. Something is going to transpire that's going to make a mess out of everything we're experiencing here in the text and the storyline. And so Job's the greatest of the peoples of the East. The second thing, however, is Job knows the Lord and what the Lord requires. And he makes offerings, and he makes offerings for his children just in case they sin and run afoul of God. That's important, right? He is blameless and upright. Now, that may not mean like you or I might jump to that he's sort of morally perfect, but he's blameless and upright. God tells Abraham in the Genesis narrative to walk before him and be blameless. Job is doing that. And Job is doing that not where Abraham has gone to, but over where Abraham was, in the land of Uz, somewhere over there by Babylon in the east, or further, perhaps. And so Job hasn't necessarily done something for which he's being punished. And this is Job's major contention in the narrative arc that we see play out in the text of Job. God, I've not done something that deserves a punishment like this, so why are you punishing me? We're going to come to God's answer to that in a second, but that's sort of the basic gist of this. And throughout the book, Job maintains his integrity, and he speaks of God what is right and true, and that's clear because God says that to us not only at the beginning, but at the end. So let's talk about this this Satan character in the text of Job. Now, most of our English translations render it like it's a name, and that has a lot to do with the theological tradition that has developed, and the tradition that Jesus hands to us and the New Testament hands to us when it talks about Satan and watching Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Now, the Hebrew word is ha-satan, the Satan, the Satan, the accuser, the adversary. It's a bit like a prosecuting attorney, it seems, in the court that God holds. So when we open the narrative, we're introduced to Job. He's in the east. And then we're introduced to God holding court. And in that court comes this accuser, this adversary, the one who brings an accusation. Look, Job is only blameless and upright. He's only full of integrity because you've hedged him in on every side. And you take care of him, and you protect him, and you provide for him. And right here is where the narrative of Job enters conversation with the world of Proverbs. Because the world of Proverbs, from the parental, motherly, and fatherly instruction to the son, says, if you persist in integrity, then God will reward that and pour out blessings. Things go well for human beings when they follow God's ways, when they live righteous and upright lives. And the text of Job, and in the words of the adversary and the accuser, it turns that upside down and says, well, maybe Job is only this kind of blameless and upright because he sorry, I lost my train of thought. Maybe Job is only blameless and upright because you have provided him this blessing, and you've hedged him in, and you've protected him, and so maybe if you remove the blessing, then Job loses his integrity. It's a challenge to the Proverbs model. The Proverbs model says God pours out his blessing as a reward for righteous and upright character. And this is the paradigm that the four primary speakers of the book, Job and his three friends, are gonna address. And Job does this through the sort of narrative, and he just keeps sort of repeating it. I've not done anything to lose that blameless or upright status, and so what is befalling me is unfair. Because the framework that they're operating from is I do the blameless and upright thing, and God rewards those who are blameless and upright. And the words of the accuser in the text say, no, Job is only blameless and upright because you've blessed him. And God challenges that. He says, no, absolutely not. Job will maintain his integrity. Job doesn't understand, but he'll maintain his integrity. And so Job is wrestling with the paradigm, and he's arguing that this idea of I've been blameless and upright, and God has allowed or has done against me these terrible things that have caused me a great deal of pain. This doesn't make any sense. And he's seeking an answer for that. This doesn't make any sense. Job's friends press back and argue, listen, you must have messed it up somewhere along the way, because God doesn't allow these things or do these things just because. And in that regard, both the three friends and Job are correct. One, Job has not violated his integrity. Two, God doesn't do these things just because. Three, Job's friends are wrong. Job has not sinned. God has done this at the encouragement, or has allowed this at the encouragement of the accuser. And what's at stake is Job's integrity. But God has said Job will maintain his integrity. And then Job goes about maintaining his integrity, but wrestling with it. And the wrestling with it is the part of the storyline of Job that's in dialogue with Proverbs. Because Proverbs says, if we're blameless, if we're upright, then God blesses us, and he takes care of us, and he provides for us, and he makes our way straight, and he levels the mountains for us, and riches and honor and glory, it's all kind of there. And the book of Job says it's not that simple. There are things at play that are beyond God simply responding like a vending machine to our righteousness or lack thereof. It's not that simple when it comes to God. God's reasons are unsearchable. God's testing is challenging. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean that we've done something wrong. It doesn't mean that we didn't do something wrong, but it doesn't mean that we did either. And so we have to navigate this with a great deal of discernment. And so Proverbs lays out for us this idea that, like a father teaches their children, you do the right thing and it goes well for you. And Job says, you do the right thing because you fear God and you know him. You do the right thing because it's the right thing. You do the right thing regardless of whether or not God's going to manifest earthly blessings and possessions and family and wealth and whatever, or not. You do the right thing. You maintain your integrity. Job's wife, right? Curse God and die. Why do you hold to your integrity? And Job says, you speak like a foolish woman. There's no way I'm going to maintain this. God gives and God takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And this is Job's perspective on the matter. And that's not going to change. Job's friends are still articulating the Proverbs paradigm. If something terrible has befallen you like this must be God's judgment for something. And Job as a book is saying to that conversation, God's bigger than just handing out rewards or punishments for whether or not we did the right thing or the wrong thing today. And in doing that, it enters this conversation with a nuance on evil. And there's two kinds of evil that take shape in the text of Job. There's evil that is morally reprehensible. There's evil that is sin and wickedness and unrighteousness. It's evil that is violation of God's standard, God's will, and God's ways. But then there is evil that we would say bad stuff happens. And the Hebrew word for evil encompasses all of that. And so when Job talks about evil, it's important that we read it and discern and be really clear whether or not it's discussing the idea of evil in the morally reprehensible, this is a violation of God's standard sense, or evil in the sense of this is a bad, difficult, unpleasant experience and I don't like it. Job's experience is evil only in the sense that it is bad, unpleasant, and we don't like it. And God speaks into that paradigm when he says in chapter 2, you incited me. Here, I'll pull it up real quick and read it for us. God is speaking with the accuser, right? And he asks him again we're early on in chapter 2, right? Again, there's a day when the sons of God came and presented themselves before the Lord, and the accuser came with them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said to him, where have you come from? And he answered, from going to and fro on the earth and walking up and down on it. And the Lord said, have you considered my servant Job? There is none like him on the earth, a blameless man, blameless and upright man who fears God, turns away from evil. He still holds fast to his integrity, although you incited me against him for no reason, to destroy him without reason. And then skin for skin, all that a man has, he will give for his life. Stretch out your hand and touch his, right, his flesh, and he will curse you. And the Lord said to him, right, behold, he's in your hand, only spare his life. So then in verse 9, Job's wife, do you hold fast to your integrity still? Curse God and die. And this then is the tension of the book of Job. Why do human beings do the good, the right, the noble, the blameless thing? And for Job, it's integrity. I do it because it's the right thing to do, and I will honor God by doing the right thing. And in his frustration, in his confusion, in his difficulty, he does the right thing, and he takes his case to the Lord. Now, the Lord's answer is pretty clear at the end of the narrative. Job's not going to be able to understand because he's not God. And herein Job learns something. The Proverbs paradigm of do the right thing and get a reward doesn't always work because God's bigger than that basic system of we put in our $1.25 of religious observance, obedience, and righteousness, and God spits out our soda of choice. Proverbs is I don't want to say it this way, but I don't want it to sound bad. It's truisms, and it's the simplistic instructions of truth from a father and a mother to their son that says, live this way because it goes better for you. And Job speaks up and says, life is complex and it's complicated. And even if it doesn't go well for you, hold fast to your integrity, maintain it, because it's the right thing to do. And herein is the dialogue among the books in wisdom literature. And this is where they enter the conversation. Proverbs says we do the right thing and God blesses us. Job says we might do the right thing and God might bless us. God might bless us and we might do the right thing. Or we might do the right thing and God might bless us. And those two may not be connected. They might just be happenstances of this life. We might do the right thing and not see God's blessings in the riches and the wealth and the grandeur of our status. We might just do the right thing and fly under the radar. We might do the right thing and suffer a great deal. The dialogue that Job has with Proverbs says we should do the right thing because we should fear the Lord and we should know him. But life's more complex than we do the right thing and God gives us good stuff. Because good stuff and not good stuff, evil stuff and bad stuff, those are definitions that are left up to God. And I think ultimately when we get to the end of the book, Job is in a better place. Before his riches and his children and all of that stuff is sort of restored to him, Job is in a better place, having had his encounter with God in the whirlwind than he was when he started the book. I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you, and I repent in dust and ashes. I spoke of things too wonderful for me. This is what he says at the end of the book. He has now an understanding, a knowledge of God that's personal, that's intimate, that's powerful, that he didn't have when the book began. And that is part of the conversation and the dialogue. Wisdom at its core is the fear of the Lord and the knowledge of God, whether or not it comes with riches and grandeur and status and greatness and whatever else. But knowing God is not just knowing the right things. Knowing God is about knowing the person that is God. And that's part of what's at the core that Job is bringing to the conversation. We're going to unpack a little bit more of this and some of these players and characters as we go. We'll do another touch on Job and this wisdom, understanding, and the sort of midrash voices that we hear, and the way that that poetic chunk of the book is shaped in the next post. So have a good day, everybody. It's a wonderful Tuesday in June. We'll see you next time.